The bell above the shop door rang, and Adeline did not look up from her stitching, for she had learned in 3 long years that the safest thing a dead woman could do was keep her eyes down and her needle moving. "I am told," said a voice she had not heard in 3 years, and had never once stopped hearing in her dreams, "that this is the finest seamstress in the county." The needle stopped. She knew the voice the way she knew her own heartbeat, low and grave and a little weary, the voice that had once said her name across a candlelit table, the voice she had grieved as surely as if she were the one who had died. Slowly, slowly, Adeline lifted her eyes from the cloth in her lap. He stood in the doorway of the little shop at the end of England, filling it with his dark coat and his broad shoulders and his unmistakable face, and the bell still trembled above him, and the late afternoon light came golden through the small window and fell across him exactly as it had used to fall across him at home. The Duke of Harrowgate, her husband, who believed her 3 years in the grave. His face had gone white as paper. The parcel he carried slipped from his fingers and struck the floor, and he did not so much as glance at it. He took 1 step into the shop, and another, his eyes fixed on her as though she were a ghost that might vanish if he blinked, and his voice when it came was barely a sound at all. "Adeline," he said. She rose. Her knees were not quite steady. "You should not be here," she whispered, and the words came out broken, 3 years of silence cracking all at once. "Oh, you should not have come. If they know you have found me, they will." She pressed a hand to her mouth. Behind the curtain at the back of the shop, all was quiet, but her every nerve had gone toward that curtain, toward the small sleeping presence she had given everything to protect. The Duke crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped just short of her, his hands lifting and then halting in the air, afraid to touch her, afraid she was not real. "They told me you were dead," he said hoarsely. "There was a grave, there was a funeral. My cousin brought me the news himself, with tears in his eyes, and I buried an empty box and grieved you for 3 years. His voice shook. "Adeline, what happened to you? Why are you alive in a shop at the edge of the world, mending other men's coats, when you are the Duchess of Harrowgate, and I have wept at your headstone every Sunday for 3 years. The tears were running down her face now, and she could not stop them. "Because your cousin," she said, "would have killed us both." The Duke went very still. "He came to me," Adeline said, the long-buried truth pouring out of her at last, "while you were away in the north. He told me that if you died without a son, the title and the whole of Harrowgate would pass to him. And then he looked at me, she faltered, her eyes flying again to the curtain, and the Duke's followed, and she saw understanding begin to dawn in his face. "I was with child, James. I had not even had the chance to tell you. And your cousin knew it, and a child stood between him and everything he wanted. He made it very plain what would happen to us both if I remained. So I did the only thing I could think of to keep us alive. I let him believe his work was done. I let the world bury me. And I ran to the one place a duchess would never be sought, and I learned to sue. And I have kept us hidden and safe and breathing for 3 years, waiting for the day I might find a way to tell you the truth without bringing his vengeance down upon I." She stopped herself before the word. "Upon what I was protecting." The Duke of Harrowgate had not moved through any of it, but something terrible and dawning was happening in his face, grief and rage and a wild, breaking hope all at war. "A child," he said. "Adeline, we have a child." As if in answer, the curtain at the back of the shop stirred. A small hand appeared first, curling round the edge of the fabric, and then a small face peered out, tousled from sleep, clutching a worn wooden horse with the paint long since loved away. The little one looked at the tall stranger, and then up at Adeline, uncertain. The Duke went to his knees on the worn shop floor as though his legs had simply given way beneath the weight of it. "Oh," he said, "just that. Oh." Adeline watched her husband look upon his own child for the first time, the child he had never known existed, the child she had given up her whole life to protect, and the last of her composure broke entirely. He did not reach out. He seemed to understand, even shattered as he was, that a small wary person could not be rushed, He simply knelt there with the tears running unashamed down his face, and he said very gently, "That is a fine horse. Does he have a name?" And the little one, after a long considering look, whispered the horse's name and held it out for the kneeling stranger to admire, and Adeline pressed both hands to her mouth and wept for everything she had lost and everything, against all hope, she had just been given back. It did not all mend in an hour. Such things never do. But the Duke of Harrowgate, who had buried an empty box and grieved 3 years, was not a man to let a wrong of that magnitude stand. He took his wife and his child away from little shop at the edge of England that very night, but not to flaunt them, not yet. He took them somewhere safe, and then he did the thing he should have been allowed to do 3 years before. He gathered the proof, Adeline's testimony. The forged record of her death, a frightened maid the cousin had paid to keep silent, who offered protection at last, told the magistrate everything. The cousin was arrested at his own dinner table, before the very society he had schemed so long to enter, and he was tried, and the law answered him as the law answers such men, fully and finally, and the Duke of Harrowgate stood in the courtroom with his wife's hand in his and watched justice done, and felt 3 years of grief settle at last into something he could lay down. "I am sorry," he told Adeline that night, when the house was quiet and the small one was asleep at last in a real nursery, safe, with a fire in the grate and no curtain to hide behind. "I should have protected you. You faced him alone. You gave up everything, your name, your home, your whole life, and you raised our child in a shop at the edge of the world, and you did it all alone, and I was weeping at an empty grave." "You could not have known," Adeline said softly. "No," he agreed, "but I know now. And I want you to understand something, Adeline, and to believe it, after all the years you have spent believing you were on your own." He took both her hands in his, the hands grown rough with 3 years of honest stitching, and he pressed them to his lips. "You will never face anything alone again. Not him, not his like, not anything the world can send. Whatever it costs, whatever it takes, you and the child come first, before the title, before the estate, before my own life if it comes to it. I have grieved you once. I will not spend another day failing to deserve the miracle of having you back." His voice gentled. "Come home, Adeline. Be my Duchess again, not because the title requires it, but because I cannot breathe properly in any house that does not have you in it. Come home, and let me spend the rest of my life being the husband you should have had all along." And Adeline, who had let the world bury her to keep her child alive, who had taught herself to sew by candlelight and to swallow her grief, and to hope against all reason for exactly this impossible hour, looked into the eyes of the husband who had found her at the edge of the world, and felt the long winter of her hiding finally break. "I am so tired of being dead," she whispered, and laughed through her tears, and let him gather her at last into his arms. They went home to Harrowgate together, the 3 of them, in the soft gold light of an ordinary afternoon. And the small one rode upon the Duke's shoulders down the long drive he should have known from birth, clutching the worn wooden horse, and Adeline walked beside her husband with her hand in his, no longer hidden, no longer afraid, no longer alone. And the Duke of Harrowgate, who had buried his wife and grieved her 3 years, told her every single day for the rest of their long and happy lives that no man on earth had ever been given back so much, nor loved so completely the woman who had walked out of the grave and into his arms.